What's up, guys? We're back with another video after a long weekend away out of town. Uh, Doing some running around in the middle of the day today because I didn't plan out my week that great. So here we are. We went to Home Depot in the middle of the day. That's the sign of a poorly planned day. So it happens. What are you gonna do? But whatever, we're here. Had a great long weekend out of town. Went to the Cape. Went to Newport, Rhode Island Seafood Festival yesterday. Highly recommend. And today we are back. We're running around. I'm about to go finish up my bathroom remodel, and that'll be wrapped up today. And rest of the week, doing some small, some smaller jobs, and then getting ready for our big show at Foxwoods this Saturday, the 25th, 10 to 6. VIP hour is 9 to 10, so it's going to be a long day, but I'm very optimistic about what that show will be like. So let's hope it's going to be awesome. And then next month on November 9th, which is a Sunday, doing a show at Wentworth in Boston. It's a college right next to where I went to college, Emmanuel. So the organizer of that show, I met him at a card show. He asked me if I was interested, and I just thought it'd be cool. I love an excuse to go to Boston, so we're going. So that show should be good. I think it's like 80 tables. And it's right in sort of the college area, Fenway area of Boston. So I think it'll give a lot of college age collectors, or Boston city collectors that don't have cars, a chance to actually go to a show. Whereas if stuff is outside of the city, even if it's only a half hour away, the T's not always the easiest way to get places. So I think it'll give some different collectors a chance to go to the show, and I think it'll be cool. So catch me there. And then Black Friday weekend, just signed up for Pokemon Outlet again in Lee, and looking forward to that. That's a 3-day show, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's going to be hopefully as good as the last one. I think it will be. So psyched for all those. All right. Today, let's see, we're going to talk about a new, mostly new topic, one we haven't really talked about too much, and that is time preference and how that applies to collectibles and vending and investing and gambling and all the stuff we like about the Pokemon hobby. And it's also very relevant to other things in your life, work and saving and building a solid financial ground for your adult life, especially since I know there's in this hobby there's a lot of like young guys that are and girls that are they're hustlers, really. And so there's nothing wrong with being a hustler. There's nothing wrong with making a quick flip. That's a big part of vending. It's a great part of vending. There is a lot of short-term money to be made, but the long term's important too. And in fact, the long term is more important. So what is time preference? Time preference is an economic concept, and on the sliding scale you have high time preference to low time preference. A low time preference, well, actually, let's start with the high. High time preference is essentially people who value present consumption over investing over saving, over, you know, if you have high time preference, then you value the value you're extracting out of whatever you're doing now more than, you know, the long term of the value you could be extracting or growing and building. And so low time preference is the opposite. It's valuing investing in the future over the short-term gain. And there's a lot of ways this applies. It doesn't just apply money-wise. It's not limited to just like, yeah, maybe don't like don't lease the most expensive car you can possibly afford right now. And, you know, have that affect your ability to purchase a house 5 years from now. I mean, that is a huge part of it. But it's more like just thinking about every little trade that you're making throughout your day between your current self and your future self. So, you know, when it comes to cardboard and Pokemon and collecting and investing, the extremes of this scenario would be something like, you know, somebody with super high time preference, and I'm sure we've all seen them at card shows. You know, they'll come up to you, they'll buy some packs or they'll buy a box, and they'll sit down and rip open whatever sealed product they bought from you, and they'll get a handful of hits or whatever, and then immediately they're like, how much can I get for these hits? I want to trade these hits in so I can buy another box. And, you know, if you've been in this hobby for very long, you will know that's not a great collectibles investing strategy. That's a really good way to end up with a bunch of bulk and the last box you rip being the most disappointing. So, you know, that is sort of the gambler mindset is, oh, well, there's always a better hit around the corner, and they're there for the chase and the thrill, which, you know, I'm not going to dog on somebody for that. You know, you can value the fun, especially, you know, within limits, reasonable limits. Valuing the fun of opening packs is like a gigantic part of this hobby, if not the biggest part of this hobby. You know, us vendors and the collector investor side of this hobby, you know, there's a lot of us, and in a lot of ways I think we almost feel like we are the majority in the hobby that do it like that. But I think that's social media crafted and not necessarily the reality of it. Because I mean, rip and shippers exist for a reason, and it's really that exact thing. Like, you know, people like the thrill of the chase, they like opening cards, they like gambling, and nothing wrong with that. I mean, I get it. But that's like very high time preference behavior, valuing the current dopamine hit, the current psychological, you know, reward that you get from opening it, from hitting the hit, from this and that, over, oh, I got this hit. You know, the next step along would be like, oh, I got these hits. That's cool. I'm going to add them to my collection and hold on to them and see what they do over time. That would be the next thing. And then like way over all the way on the other side in the low time preference category is like the guys who dollar cost average. And by that, I mean like they buy up a little bit at a time so that they're not forking over all their money at one price point. So, but they're dollar cost averaging sealed product and sitting on them for a decade or more. That's like the low, you know, that's Alpha Investments, Rudy's strategy. If you're familiar, go shout out Alpha Investments. Big reason why I do videos like this, because I love his videos. Rudy is that guy. He buys and buys and accumulates and holds, and he's got the lowest time preference of anybody that I can think of in the collectible space. He's legendary for it. He's the best at it. That's why he's been on YouTube 10 years and he's crushing it. And, you know, salute to Rudy. We all aspire to be like you. And then sort of in the middle of these two sliding scales of time preference, I think is where a lot of us vendors exist. And that is to say, if there's a quick flip to be made, we're there. And, you know, not all the vendors are investors, but many are. For instance, you know, right now I have multiple cases of sealed product that I originally bought as inventory, and now I'm just like, I like the long-term trajectory of these products better than the quick flip. And so I'm going to hold on to them. I'm going to throw them in the closet. I'm going to see what they do over the years. I don't know. I'm not really committing to not selling them. I'm not committing to selling them at any certain specific time. I'm just going to let the market do what it does. And especially in collectibles, in investments, you know, the savvy investors will always tell you, maybe I ripped this off from Rudy, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I've heard it other places as well. They'll always tell you time in the market beats timing the market every time. And by that, they mean, like, you know, we don't know what the market's going to do. You never know if it's the bottom, if it's the top. You might have a hunch, but that doesn't necessarily mean much. And so, you know, but the longer that you're holding an asset, the better chance you have for it to appreciate in value. Much related to sort of what I was talking about in sort of my first couple videos. When you live in an inflationary monetary environment, the longer you hold an asset, the better chance you have that it's going to appreciate in whatever currency value underlie, you know, whatever current, you know, we use dollars here. So in dollar amounts, the longer you hold things, the better chance you have at them appreciating. And that's the mindset of lower time preference investors and collectors, is just hold. You know, if you're in the Bitcoin space, just hodl. That's what they'll tell you, you know. And not that there's anything wrong with that strategy, but I think in a market like this, and especially if you're dealing with stuff that's not sealed product, so singles and slabs, if you're dealing with singles and slabs, you got to be somewhere in between. You know, you can't just you could just accumulate singles and slabs and sealed. You could accumulate everything if you want. But, you know, it's really hard to gauge what those types of things are going to do over long terms, especially stuff that's not sealed product. Sealed product, just, you know, if you have the means and, you know, there's no, you know, you're not in a business like vending where you're churning and burning and inventory moving is part of your business model, it's pretty much pending some like unknowable, unforeseeable collapse of some type. It's pretty much a bulletproof investment strategy to buy sealed product and hold it for a long time. You're not gonna do well if you hold on to it long, or you're not gonna do poorly if you hold on to it long enough. And if you've been in a collecting space for a while, you probably know that already. That being said, so vendors, you know, we've got a different business model, and our business model is to buy and sell. Buy at a percentage, sell as close as we can to market, and always make our percent. Make your percent on a trade, make your percent when you're buying, selling, trading, whatever. And so it's more of a percentage model, and you're flipping through inventory and you're trying to accumulate inventory, but at the same time, it's not just accumulation. You have to sell also, because otherwise you can't get new inventory if you're, I would not recommend going into vending and not selling. Like, you could, but it's risky, and if there's never a sell point, especially with singles and slabs, it kind of just becomes more and more risk. Like, you're accumulating risk as well as product. And so that's why churning is part of the business model. You got to do both. But in a bull market like this that we're in, like the best bull market of all time in Pokemon probably, it does feel sometimes like, man, well, maybe if I just keep buying and just keep holding, my stuff might double in the next 6 months. It might triple in the next year. It might quadruple in the next 2 years, whatever. And it might. But at some point, the bull market's probably gonna slow down at least. Most likely at some point, there will be a change in interest for at least a period of time. And I would just caution some people who think everything's going to go up forever, because that's kind of been the environment for the last couple of years. You might want to consider that it may not go up forever. And so, especially when it comes to singles and slabs, even sealed for that point, most sealed products are more than double where they would have been 3 years ago. There is no MSRP anymore. Doesn't really exist. Especially for things like booster boxes and ETBs. I don't know if we'll ever go back to former MSRP price levels. Kind of doubt it. But, if you're buying at full market value, or even 80% of full market value, there's a chance that there's going to be a significant drawback. And if you need that capital and that liquidity for other things outside of collecting and vending, be careful, because it could, another thing that a lot of the investment guys say is, the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain liquid. And so just be careful. I think, how this applies to what I'm doing in my strategy right now is, I am starting to pull some of my profits from card flipping out and putting them into other areas, whether that's just like day-to-day costs of my life, or other sort of just cash funds that I want to set aside for things outside of Pokemon and vending, or staying within Pokemon and vending, some of those funds going to long-term holds that I view as good investments and not as inventory for the vending business. And so just be aware that, it's not a perma bull market. There is a possibility that, I don't think it's coming soon, maybe next year, maybe the year after, but eventually there will be drawbacks. There will be price renegotiations on price in the market. And just be careful and don't get caught holding the bag when you need the bag for something else. that would be my cautionary advice. But in the meantime, I would say the vending space is really healthy. It's growing. It's growing on social media. It's growing in real life. There's tons of card shows. There's tons of interest in card shows. There's people that I know from high school and middle school who are interested in the hobby, interested in collecting, interested, they go to shows, and I view it as a pretty overall healthy market, even though, I would say some of the pricing is a little scary, and that's okay. I don't think it's fake. I don't think it's a bubble necessarily. And I wouldn't just wait for the crash either. It's always good to have some money set aside for if there is a big price correction and you wanna double down when the price correction comes. But I wouldn't just sit around and not have your money do anything either. So just some various thoughts, and I don't know. I guess this is a little bit of a rambling one, much like my plans for my work week. I guess I didn't plan this video out that thoroughly, and that's okay. Just getting back on camera, getting back talking about the hobby and all that stuff, and some things to think about. What do you value in the current moment? What do you value long term? And finding a healthy balance of those things is key to the vending space, to investing, collectibles in general, and in general in life, in investing and saving and planning for your future, all of that stuff. So yep, that's the video for today, guys. See you tomorrow. Later.